In today's episode, we catch up with what we've been working on this week and also get a little bit meta and chat about all the things to do with listening to podcasts. Let's deploy. Hello and welcome to Push to Prod. I'm your co-host Cole and I work on Userlot, a tool to help SaaS companies build revenue through customer success.
And I'm your co-host Dan Miller. I'm building a SaaS for the first time and learning as I go. Each episode, we chat about all sorts of things to do with the world of starting, growing and operating software businesses. Today, it's the 2nd of April. It's lovely fall weather, and the world is still going nuts about the AI hype cycle. This is episode number 4.
Awesome, mate. Thanks. Hey, Dan, nice to spend another Sunday evening with you. What's been happening over the weekend for you?
I've had a pretty chill weekend. With Easter coming up, we spent a bit of time in the house together today, and my 14-year-old daughter, she made hot cross buns. And man, she killed it. They are so good. You pull them out of the oven. These things are warm, squishy, soft, and they just make you want to eat them. So we ate far too many than we should have. That was a lot of fun.
You get them out of the oven, whack a heap of butter on them? Is that what you do?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Before you know it, there's 2, maybe 3 going down.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. No, there's nothing smells better than something baking, especially when it's bread. That's just, it's like one of those things. Like I used to, I bought a coffee roaster thing, like a drip coffee machine, like Americans love their drip coffee and Australians hate it, but I love the smell of it. So literally years ago, I bought one and I used it a little bit, but I never liked it. But then I thought, I love the smell of it. So I just used to turn it on. So at 6 a.m, it would
you can walk into that room and you can get that waft of coffee. Yeah.
And then I went over to the Nespresso capsule machine or the other machine we had and used that. But anyway, it was, it's what you do, I guess. So nice. I actually, talking about the weather, it was such good weather yesterday, that perfect. I think I tweeted it and you probably saw it. I did my first 10K run and I went, this is just perfect running temperature where it was like.
It's the weather you can't feel.
It's been baking hot. We've just had pretty hot summer, at least, February, March, and it was just good to go, I can run and not feel like I'm going to die. And I guess the other news for me, obviously I had COVID this week, so that it felt good to be able to get out and
hang on a second. You went for a run after having COVID. Cole, you are
COVID
Superman.
Last weekish. Yeah. So I actually had it unbeknownst in the episode last week, but I wasn't sure, and then I tested it and went, yes, I do. But there you go.
I'm glad you're okay. That's pretty impressive.
I probably sounded a bit stuffed in the last episode, but no, there you go. That's what it was. So,
you must have a pretty good fitness baseline then if you can sort of smash through COVID and then go for a jog. Not many people could pull that off, I reckon.
I was running when I could last time with it too. So I don't know. It probably helps that I do run. So hopefully that means you got a better. I don't know. I don't know the physics of it, or whatever it's called, medical part of it. But so that was
good to see you on the mend. Yeah.
Feeling way better. That's been good. Got out today. I'm obviously negative now since Friday, as far as I could tell. So hopefully all's good. So
what else has been happening in Userlot land? What's been going on for you guys this week?
Yeah, well, it's probably the bit of a broken record, but everything jumping around between marketing and sales and development and things like that. But the development's been pretty good. We've got we're taking on a couple of new sort of clients. They're more MVP related people, but so I guess we're finding all the little things that, as you would expect with an MVP, that they sort of work when you show someone, but when you actually want to use that feature or that thing, there's always the little rough edges that you knew were there, and so it's just a matter of getting through a bunch of them. And I guess the other thing, I've had a lot of stuff on my plate that I've just haven't got out. I don't know. Do you suffer from this where, I don't know, you have 5 or 10 things on the go and then you never finish any of them, and then you've got 5 or 10
that was the story of my life about a year or two ago. I have a habit of actually trying to take on too much all at once, and last year I really noticed it because I was really keen to get back into starting to build this SaaS again. And at the same time, I had gone and volunteered to become the secretary of a volunteer organisation over there. I was also running a few things on the side in the business. I was working full time. And then, before you know it, you're like, hey, I need to wind this back big time. Otherwise, I'm getting nothing done. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, so I've had, I noticed when I was because I've been working on Userlot for like the full 18 months we've been running it, but it's been as a part-time thing. So most of that has been development. So whenever I've got 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, do a bit. And I've had a lot of leftovers from that this year I thought I could get through. And what are we now? April 2. And I'm like, oh God, there's still like 3 major big things I was building that still not out.
Yeah.
I like to, people might not like the sound of this, but I like to call it like the constipation thing. Like you've just got all this stuff built up and so you just got to get through it. And that's what I've been doing with some of the stuff. So like one of the other things we put in, which, it's pretty common in a SaaS thing, but we baked it in from day one to be able to have like proper multi-user. Like it's multi-tenanted, so that's normal. Yep. But the fact that, a normal user can also have multiple accounts and switch between them, but we just never built that switch part.
Yeah.
So I was working on that. But the funny thing with Userlot is we track, because Userlot tracks the usage of products, it tracks itself. So there's, this mind bending, and it actually causes some problems as well, because you don't want what we call God mode, the main account. You don't want it to track itself because it's the main one. And so we end up with a couple of these little mind twisted bending things that I'm like, in a normal system, this is easy. We've done it before, but now I'm like, oh, hang on. Are we firing this and now that's becoming that in the God mode
we're
account?
Chasing our tail.
Yeah. So
we're in a horrible recursion loop nightmare.
Yeah. But it is like, I'm really like, obviously it's not all working yet, but I'm like, man, when this works, how cool would it be to just sit back in your own product, which is the product you're selling, as well, and using it to monitor how people are using your product, which is the whole use case of
that is cool.
Why people
that is very cool.
So that's been fun, but a bit of a mind, as I said, a bit of a mind bender.
Nice. I had a bit of fun this week. I got functioning end-to-end pilot version of the app I'm building deployed. First time, so still a long way to go. But it's a nice milestone.
Like just to yourself, like is that on a cloud system or like?
On a hosted platform. So it's there. It's sort of not visible to anything or anyone, but it's there. And I was like, excellent, milestone achieved. I've been wanting to do that for a while, and I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah,
that it's one of those things. Like I may have mentioned this before, but it's one of my pet peeves of like, when you get someone who's fairly inexperienced, they build something and it works on their machine. It doesn't work anywhere else.
Oh, that's the cliche dev routine, right? Works on mine. I don't know why it's not working on yours.
It's so important, I think, to know how you're going to deploy it, but also not just deploy it to a production environment, but have another staging or, test environment and make sure it's all sort of, all at least those 3 levels are worked out, including where's all my configuration secret's going to belong and how am I going to track all that. And if you don't think of it, it becomes very easy for the wrong thing to leak into the wrong environment. So,
I love doing deploys to prod as well, because it suddenly switches your mindset into, okay, remember, everything you do from this point forward must be controlled. So no more mucking around. But that kind of cool. It breeds good habits and it breeds good process once you get to that point. So that's why I was really keen to get to prod. So I pushed to prod. I'm happy.
That's really good, man. That's it's always a milestone. Yeah,
thanks.
Did you see Rob Walling's new SaaS book went live this week as well? Have you been tracking that?
No, what was that?
He's got his new, I think it's called the SaaS Playbook. Geez, that's bad. I should have actually looked at that. I think it's called the SaaS Playbook, because I think it's his latest book. It's on Kickstarter. Just went live on Wednesday maybe. So I'm assuming a lot of people who obviously, and we're going to get into podcasts in the latter half of this show, I'm assuming most people know who Rob Walling is if they're listening to us. So if you haven't, jump on the Kickstarter, and I'm assuming there's, still obviously ways to pre-order the book, I guess. So it looks really good.
For a bit of context, so for those that don't know who Rob Walling is, he's like a stalwart. He's one of the OGs of podcasting and building SaaSes and telling everyone how to do it, and he does it really well. He's got a show called Startups for the Rest of Us, and he's well known around the traps for just giving people wonderful advice and just getting them off the ground, especially bootstrappers and independent software developers. So that's who Rob is. That's probably a really good book to get a hold of, I reckon, for sure.
Yeah, especially if you're building, basically, I think, to have 15 or whatever it is years of his SaaS building experience shoved into something where it's like, this is what you got to know about. I think it's definitely well worth it. So I'm looking forward to it anyway. Yeah, nice. So I grabbed that. That was definitely on the week. I guess I'm going to ask you some questions, throw them at you that you didn't know I was going to ask you.
Hit it. Don't know if I'll give you the answers, but we'll see.
So the other thing I'm doing, and you may have noticed that, I don't know, is trying to build up my audience, and that's building a podcast too, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I guess I wanted to see what your thoughts just briefly were on, I guess, the best ways to do that, especially think Twitter, think LinkedIn. You know, you don't want to totally go down all the little, grey hat, whatever, dark arts of how to, buy audiences or followers. But like, you've got more than me. Like, what would you be doing? And, any tips, I guess, for.
Yeah. I don't know. Just be yourself, really. I think people definitely can pick it, and they can see when people are deliberately trying to sort of build things up. But I find that if you just be yourself and you've got something interesting to say, you're helpful, you're supportive, and you're having a bit of fun, like that's the best thing to do about it. I reckon someone to watch, there's a few good people to watch, but someone to watch really well is clearly Justin Jackson. If you've ever seen any of his stuff, he's a master of it. He's been doing this sort of stuff, internet marketing, since day dot. I mean, that was his old handle from back in the day, MI Justin, right? Which it's an acronym, a backronym standing for marketing internet marketing. So he's the man. He's the man when it comes to figuring out how to get a lot of following, and he knows how to do it really well.
Yeah, cool.
And I think some of the things I picked up from him over the years is community building. It's all about bringing people together. And also, like I said before, just being yourself, being honest, being genuine, and trying not to fake it, because, you can fake it. You can follow trends. You can be really popular in one area, but before you know it, that popularity hype cycle will die, and those people that you've been hooking into will just move on. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess the grey area that I hit, and I always sort of go, is, like the questions, and I've fired a few out this week, and they're fun. And I find I engage when people say something as well. And I'm trying to think of one that I would have answered today, but, just things like, I don't know, what did you, something you worked on this week, or, what's your favorite, what IDE do you use? These type of things, which, okay, I don't generally just ask people that.
Yeah.
But obviously you do get engagement. So it's like, I feel like in my head, I'm like, I think you should be honest and show yourself whatever it is, 50, 60, 70% of the time. But those other 30% is probably playing the game a bit in order to get some of that outreach. Yeah. Is that?
Possibly. I also see it as one of those cases of you got to give to get. So if you can give things to people, if you're helpful to people, you can share. Everyone's got some sort of skill and knowledge in some area, right? And if you can share a little bit about what it is you do, if it, like in your case, you've got amazing amounts of skill in building software businesses, building software as a service type businesses, and growing user audiences around that. You've got a huge amounts of skill in doing that. I mean, you've had a successful exit in the past, right? So I reckon people will probably start tapping into that. They'll go, hang on a second, Gomo or Colin he's someone who I can follow who has got skills in that space. And as long as you keep sort of sharing that, you're giving that information back to others, it'll grow naturally for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's some of the things I've started to think about, like that I would do internally in a business. Some of the videos I would build internally. I'm going to go, how do I build in public on that stuff? Start exposing it. Yeah. No, cool. Just wanted to,
but
that's one of the things I'm, it is. Yeah. And then on top of that, you see those Twitter API pricing changes this week, and wonder, man, is Twitter just totally going to blow up?
Because we should, this should be definitely a topic for another one. I'd love to talk about the risks of building on other people's platforms for sure. That's a good point. We've seen a bit of that this week.
Have we added that into our Notion topics? If not, I'll add that right now. Yeah. Platform risk, totally.
Yep. Other cool things that happened for me this week, I got a bit of social stuff in, which hasn't happened for quite some time. Had a nice one on Friday night. I went to the National Gallery of Australia with my stepdaughter, and we saw a string quartet play by candlelight. I mean, that's not something I would normally have done. They played a bunch of pieces by Joe Hisashi, and he's a composer that was well known for scores on famous Japanese animations from the 80s, 90s and 2000s, things like Howl's Moving Castle and Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro and Castle in the Sky, that sort of thing. It was so lovely. Her and I just chilled out and, really had a lovely time of it. And then complete opposite end of the spectrum, on Saturday night, I went out and saw John Wick 4 with a couple of mates. And true to form, that was almost 3 hours of just non-stop action fighting scenes. So, my complete end of the spectrum there. And I had a lot of fun. So, there you go. A bit of social stuff. Got that in.
That quartet, I think I've seen that on Facebook, and it is actually. Are they touring?
Yeah. The Phoenix Collective is what they're called. Yeah, and they do it in Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, that might actually be coming up to the Newcastle. I don't know. That seems very small though, so maybe not. Maybe I saw it in the Sydney one.
They do all sorts of things. They do covers of popular groups. So they'll do a Queen cover. They'll do covers of Coldplay, popular movies from popular scores from other movies. Yeah, it's not bad.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So the other sort of outside of like development work that I think is interesting, and like I'll bring it up now because hopefully there'll be more to share because I can't get too specific. But the cool thing is that we're pretty confident we've kicked off this new partnership with a Australian customer success sort of consultant / recruiter type person who goes into startups.
Yeah.
Goes into startups who are probably right in that market that we're looking at, so that maybe 500 ARR through to 2 million ARR, that type of range.
Yeah.
He goes into Bootstrap and I guess turn on the proper customer success department and helps recruit. So he might even go in for 3 months and actually help them do it. But when he leaves, he's basically resourced it through, bringing, recruitment through recruiting a new role or 2 roles in.
Cool.
He sees Userlot as a really good value add onto his service. So we've formed a partnership. And I think that, because that's one of the challenges we're trying to use a lot, is how do we get into the startup scene? Because it's not going to make a heap of money, but as they grow, we want to be in there. So that's what we're trying to transform. We're trying to flip it on its head a bit. That's going to be really interesting. Hopefully we can share a bit more about that as we actually kick off. But
well done.
Might have another one coming online in the next week or 2 with that. So that's really exciting for us. So hopefully I will share more as the weeks go on.
Good work.
Yeah. Anyway, so there's probably heaps of other stuff. I don't know. Is there anything else you did this week, or did you want to
that's pretty much
move on
it.
to the topics?
I had a good little bit of work goals and a little bit of fun life goals. So there you go.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
Sorry, just before you did, I did finalise all my trip for Microconf. So I am going to Microconf. I think I'd already mentioned it that I was.
Yeah.
All the accommodations booked, and I'm getting a day of skiing in Vail.
Your luck.
Yeah. So I was there. I was going, this is going to get a little pricey, but I'm like, when you actually add it up, and if you factor that you're not flying because you're already there, it's actually worth it. So, pretty excited about that. And I was sort of on the fence of, do I just stay in Denver or do I go out to Vail for a couple of nights?
Yeah.
And I'm doing it, so that's worth it. So
well done.
Looking forward to that, and hopefully I'll do a podcast episode from over there.
Oh, that'd be cool.
That's in 2 weeks, so yeah.
Oh yeah, take the mic over and have a chat to some of the folks over there. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah,
we can get a few little snippets on the show here.
Oh, I would like to. I'll do my best. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so what are we talking about today, Dan?
Yeah, today's episode, we're going to cover all things podcast listening. So given this is a podcast show, we thought, why not we do a bit of meta here and actually talk about some of the podcasts that we love and why it made sense to us to start our own show. So we're going to cover things like why we love podcasts, how we discover new podcasts, the podcast players that we use, how we keep track of our podcasts, and also what podcasts are currently on our playlists, and finally, what our favourite shows are. So yeah, that's where we're going today.
Good. Yeah. Well, obviously we like podcasts because we actually we actually run one now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah. Well, what's the main draw cards for you?
Well, mate, the reason why who doesn't love a good podcast, right? For product developers like us, podcasts, they're such a great way to get exposure to new ideas and to keep up with, what other folks in our industry are up to. When I explain to friends and family like what I like about podcasts, I describe it as it's the next evolution in personal entertainment, and knowledge building. To me, the closest analogy I can think of is that it's a cross between listening to the radio and browsing the internet for the topics that actually really interest you. So yeah. How about you? What do you like about it?
It's actually an interesting point. I brought that up. I've got a note on that just down here, but it's like, it's funny. They're sort of new, but not new, are they? Because of the fact that I would imagine if we talked to our grandparents, they would have been saying pretty similar thing about some of the radio they would have listened to.
Yeah.
But the difference is you might have had 2 or 3 different stations or something.
Yeah.
You choose what you listen to. Whereas now it's so on demand, obviously. So I think it's it's kind of interesting. And like what I say, I love it because to me it's a meditative thing, really. I listen to them when I run mainly, sometimes in the car.
Yeah.
That's happened less and less because now my kids don't Like when they were little, they just had to put up with it. Now they want their own music on and stuff.
Yeah.
But generally, to me, it's running, which is funny because some people go, "How can you run to podcasts?" But I guess it depends on why you're running for and what you're trying to do. Like up to me, it's not a intensive workout. It's really is switching off and going for a run. And that's when I find podcasts work. And I laughed the other day when someone for, I think Bootstrapped Wed, one of the listeners was saying that he ran for a two podcast episode long run.
Wow.
He was judging his
good effort.
The length of run was not miles or Ks. It was how many Bootstrap Web podcasts he got through.
Very cool.
It's a new measure of distance, apparently. So,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I totally, obviously that's me in a nutshell as well.
Yeah. I like what you said as well. Like it gives you the ability to do things in your time. And that's one of the things I love it. I love the medium of podcasts, and you can listen to them whenever you are, whenever you've got a spare moment, like when you're commuting or doing chores. And I love that you get to zero in on whatever topic you actually want. It's not what some broadcaster decides to publish for you. Like you choose them. And the reason why I choose them, I choose them really for two reasons. The first is for a bit of downtime. That's what you said before as well. I spend a lot of time in my waking hours working, often with large numbers of people. And so I like a bit of quiet time every now and again. Listening to a podcast gives my mind a rest and lets me simply just enjoy something quietly. And the second reason, and it's the primary reason why I listen to podcasts, is to learn new ideas and to build up knowledge in areas that interest me. To me, I don't know, listening to podcasts and compared to what other people talk and say, I find that when I can hear actually someone saying it through a podcast rather than, going and reading a book or visiting or watching a movie or watching something on YouTube, I find it's a much more efficient way to do it. You can combine it with other things.
Especially when there's two of them or whatever, and you get to see that back and forth a little bit. And like the thing is, one of the things I liked about it is just, like you alluded to it, like providing it's not a produced one, you can tell most of the time, the best podcasts, they're doing it anyway, even if there was no one listening to it. They're doing it it's their way of getting their thoughts out, probably talking to someone else about it,
Segue.
Yep.
We actually do have listeners. Thank you to everyone who during
over
the week
100.
Yeah, you boosted it. Like we're one of the newest podcasts out there. We got our first 100, so to us that's great. So thank you, thank you for listening to the show.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's I'm stoked. Yeah, but I think we're trying to catch up with the big ones, but we'll get there one step at a time. Yeah, so I mean that's what I love about. Like it's just you get to really hear their personalities, and I put a little comment. I don't know if you read my comment. Hopefully it's not too dark. But I was one of the podcasts I listened to, which is a produced one, and it's a football one, an NFL one. But one of the hosts passed away with cancer, and this is a few years back, 2 years ago or something. And it was the first time it was weird. I've had this guy's voice in my head for through my speakers for the last, whatever it was, 6-7 years.
Yeah.
And now he's gone. And it was the first time you realize, that it's a connection that goes out. It's more than just a podcast. You know what I mean? Like you really get to know these people, which is they don't know me. They wouldn't know me for a bar of soap, but they are known, and I think that's what's really cool about it. It is a very personal medium compared to something like video or a YouTube channel or
for sure.
Big YouTube channels are probably very similar, obviously, but so no, I thought that was a good thing to think of. It can be quite emotional.
That's true. Yeah.
So how do you go about finding them? I guess it's the other thing, and I know people obviously found this, so they probably have their ways as well. But
me, I particularly love references. So when someone actually calls it out and says, "Hey, have you heard this podcast?" That's a little light up for me. That's wires up parts of my brain and goes, "Pay attention to this." Especially when other podcast shows themselves mention certain shows. That's when I sort of go, okay, clearly the people who are recording their own podcast have got an interest in doing it themselves. So whatever they're saying is probably worthwhile checking out for sure. Yeah. There's plenty of directories out there. And I'll go through some of them in a minute. Do you use them? List them out as well. But I mean, I didn't even really. I guess I'll jump ahead a little bit, but I use Overcast. So I just generally will click the plus button and search for a topic. Yeah. But I would usually do it, like you said, because someone's mentioned the podcast. You've already mentioned 3 to me about 3 weeks ago. So I've got them on my list now. Yeah. Have you used some of these other ones that have sort of helped? Sometimes,
find them?
you'll go through periods of time when you'll sort of say, oh, either I'm sick of listening to that one now, or I've finished that particular area of interest and it's time to move into something else. And you'll go, I haven't actually heard anyone refer anything to me lately, so I'll go and check out some directories. And some of the ones that are out there that I've looked at is the first one's Podchaser, and their goals they mentioned that they want to be the IMDb of podcasts. Their focus is on providing user-generated tagging and episode level reviews. So that's pretty handy. You can go in there, you can sort of search on tags. Yeah, you can also look through their curated lists. That worked pretty well for me. One in the past I've checked out is called Discover Pods, and that was another discovery site. And word of mouth is again the main driver on that one. So their goal is just to be unbiased and help people.
And are these all directories? Are they players as well, or you just think
sometimes a bit of both? Depending on what their goal is. Like Good Pods, for example, that's an app which is based around recommendation from friends and experts. But I think they do have a player involved in that one. And then there's Speaker. It's spelled SPKR. And again, that was an app that provides, again, more curated content suggestions. But the interesting part of that one is they deliver it as short audio clips that you can listen to and decide if you like the sound of it. So they'll say, you might be interested in this, or you search for this and here's some recommendations we've got from your search. And they'll give you a little snippet so you can go, okay, check that out.
Right. Yeah. So that's like you generally listen to yours when? Like when are you generally listening to yours?
It'll be when I'm riding the bike to work. So there's a nice little commute there. When I used to drive to work, it was obviously that. When I'm washing the dishes, when I'm doing some chores around the house,
Yeah, no, I mean the same. Yeah, chores are a big thing. Except I'll tell you a story. What you don't do is buy a brand new set of AirPod Pros when they first come out and then paint your driveway at the same time. So, because what tends to happen is you flick your ear and your $250 AirPod Pro goes into like it's slow motion and you're trying to catch it, and then blump right in.
No. Yeah.
And I'm talking about like grey charcoal oil-based concrete paint. It's not coming off.
No, it's coming off.
So
you got one muffled bud.
I'm not proud of it, but I chucked a little hissy fit and threw the other one and the case across the driveway. It literally lasted me a week, that $500 whatever they are, AirPod Pros. And I never replaced them until they brought so don't paint with them. Everything else pretty good.
I freak out sometimes if I happen to be going to somewhere that involves liquid, like going and doing the dishes, or maybe going to the toilet. You're like, be careful about the headset here.
Exactly. Yeah. No, totally. Yeah, I've almost lost them in the pool before as well. If I'm like changing the pool filter or something, and I go, Colin, you're going to do it again. So I sort of alluded this before. Obviously, you probably sound like me. We both use Overcast by the sound of it.
Yeah, I use Overcast as well. Do you use it? Like, what do you like about it?
Yeah. And I can't even remember who or what put me onto it, but it could have been the combination of the smart, I think you've written it here somewhere, the smart sort of speed thing, and it cuts out gaps and, sort of variable. You put it on 1.2 or whatever, but it can do a bit of variable speed so you can get through them, but it doesn't sound really bad.
That is an awesome feature. Hey, yeah. So for those who haven't seen it, if there's one of these players called Overcast, and it's got this feature in it where behind the scenes it will discover gaps in the show, and then it'll just cut those out for you. And so you haven't had to do a thing, but essentially it's just cutting out these short snippets all the time. And before you know it, maybe a 60-minute podcast might actually get trimmed down to, say, a 55-minute podcast or a 50-minute show. Yeah, it's good. Yeah,
so that's good with it. And I think at the time, if I recall, it was one of the better, and because I've used it for years now, I think it might have been one of the better ones that sort of, I don't know how you say this word properly, but synced across between, a phone, iPad, Mac.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't know if the Apple podcast player's got any better, but man, it was horrendous.
Yeah, it was.
And so it was just not usable, So yeah, that's why I went to Overcast originally, and then now I can't remember what other good things. It is what it is now.
I think the developer's name is Marco Arment, right? And he's done an awesome job of it. He just keeps pushing it forward, keeps fixing things, making it better all the time. What else has he done? We mentioned that smart speed thing, and it's got voice boost as well. So it can actually increase the pitch of some of them, so you get a little bit more crisper sound of the people talking at the time. Increase playback speed. Everyone uses that. What do you listen to your shows on?
Some of them I've adjusted. You know how you can do per playlist as well. It's probably like 1.1. It's only a little bit sped up. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's it. I'm doing about 1.25. I started going to like 1.5, 1.75, and I'm thinking, I'm not getting value out of this. They sound like chipmunks.
I think I do a few courses where you listen to something and then you listen back to it again. And I find that's when I crank it to 1.5 if you've already listened to it. But if you're trying to get some stuff out of it straight away, chipmunks, a bit hard to take it seriously.
Yeah.
You've done some interesting thing with your lists, haven't you? Because I just dump them all in one thing. But you've don't you sort yours in a certain way?
How
or
I
are you
keep track of them?
That? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Overcast does a pretty good job, and I sort of combine that a little bit with the stuff behind the scenes because over the years, you go through quite a few shows, and you think to yourself, I better keep track of this in case, I want to turn it off for a while. I want to come back to it, or maybe I want to refer it to someone else. So yeah, I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to tracking my podcasts, and this is how I do it.
I did see that on the notes. We get to. I just remember though, the other thing and look, it's probably not new to Overcast, is just the share at location. So like you'll be driving in the car or whatever, and you're like, oh yeah, I need to remember that. And you just share right where you are, send it off to whatever, or like into reminders or into. That's a good feature, hey? Yeah, because that's always like generally there's, and I don't think they've worked it out fully yet, but if there was a better way, just you're running and you go, I want to remember this particular thing, and bang, it's automatically sort of, when you get home, it's automatically there. Yeah. It's close, but I still think that's probably, half the problem here. You get all your good ideas when you're in the middle of either driving or running when you can't use your phone.
That's it, eh? Yeah, I'm a full nerd when it comes to tracking my podcast, but I'm proud of that. And here's what I do. I group them obviously into various categories, and the categories I've got business in general, economics and finance, entertainment, infotainment. The difference between those two is that, sometimes you get really interesting science shows, but they deliver them in such a way that it's actually pretty entertaining to listen to. Yeah. So infotainment, bit of marketing, bit of motivation stuff. I obviously love new music, and I listen to a few of those. I used to have a category around podcasting itself when I was figuring out how to create podcasts. And the other three are productivity, startups and entrepreneurship, and technology. And, I don't listen to that many shows all at once, but what I'll have shows in various categories which may be on pause at any one time, or they may be live that I'm listening to at any one time. So it depends where I'm at and what I want to get out of it in the moment or in those few months or something. So yeah, but I also I take that a step further, right? And I tag them. So once they're in those categories, I also then just tag them on the side and say, all right, what sort of podcast is this? And the tags that I've got are, it could be tactical, so I tag it with a T, or it could be exposure to new ideas or industry practices. Another tag I've got is just a progress check-in, like just what you and I have done on the show tonight. That's a good example of a progress check-in where the hosts are just catching up with each other on regular activities. Interviews, there's some awesome podcasts out there that have interviews on them. Some of them are pretty education focused, so they're there to teach you something. And you'll get some pretty cool podcasts in the past, even now, that talk about historical things. And related to that, some of them are very story based. You get some great shows there that are just built up on stories. And if a show sort of finishes or gets cancelled or it's on hiatus, I just give it an X. And some of them, I might sort of give them a Z, where I said, tried it, but currently not really listening to it at the moment. So, yeah.
So what do you do with these tags? And like, what is this after you've listened to an episode, or do you gauge it off the show notes? Because I'm guessing you'll have different tags. Like you might have, I don't know, like the Subs for Rest of Us podcast, but each episode would be differently tagged.
Oh, generally more just the show itself. And I don't do it that often. It's just every now and again I'll go through and I'll go look at my phone. What am I doing? Where am I up to with my podcast? Oh, I'll just go and I'll go tidy up my notes and keep them up to date.
So you're not doing that on an episode level. It's just
no.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's not as nerdy as you think. It's pretty good.
It's helpful because, when you come back later and you think to yourself, what was that show again?
What was that about? Yeah.
Or you want to give an advice to someone else. Oh, what do you want to get out of it? Why do you want to listen to it? They'll say, oh, I'm looking for something that's, I don't know, I'm trying to learn something here. And you'll go through and look through your list and say, oh, there you go. There's all the ones I've tagged as educational. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Oh, awesome. So, I mean, with that, what are some of the ones I guess you've been listening to? I guess we've got a probably pretty big crossover here, I'd imagine.
Yeah, probably. Well,
probably with our listenership as well. But
the list I've got at the moment, it might seem like a lot, but the thing to bear in mind that, look, I'm usually listening to these at about 1.25 speed, and I'm doing it at times when I'm commuting or walking the dog or doing chores. Okay, so while this sounds like it's a lot, it's not really that much. And even then, even though I've got all these on my list, I still don't seem to get through them all. And that's one of the things that the Overcast player does. It just boots them off behind the scenes if you didn't get a chance to listen to them. So it takes care of it for you. Yep. But they are under the category of startups and entrepreneurship. The first one that I've got in the list is the oldest one, and that's Startup for the Rest of Us. That's the OG when it comes to bootstrapping. Yeah.
It's like you're not allowed to be a startup person if you don't listen to it. So, you get shunned.
And I loved it back in the day when it was Rob Walling and his co-host Mike Tabor. They were really going through the motions. That was even before Rob started his company Drip. He had a few others.
Hit Tail.
Hit Tail, and Mike was doing a company called Audit Shark, and it was great. They were just going through it. They were learning as they were going and telling us their results. The other one I'm listening to, which we mentioned a couple of weeks back, is Startup Apart.
Good. Yeah. Yep.
And that's
I'm enjoying that one.
Yeah, that's Michael Koper and Nathan Powell. So hi guys again.
Yeah. You can tell that they've obviously, because like you know more than me, but they've obviously have worked together before, but they're not at the moment anymore. So I guess, is that right? And then, so you can tell they've still got that relationship. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I think Michael's in Spain and I don't know where Nathan is. So yeah. But that's their story.
Same. I think they're both in Spain.
Okay, yeah. Build Your SaaS, and that's John Buda and Justin Jackson. That's their story of how they came to create Transistor FM. And shout out, we host our show here on Transistor FM, so thank you guys. And thank you for putting together your show. You've been inspirational in the years.
It's been great, yeah. That was a really good show to listen to because of that fact. Like I think everyone who's probably listened to it mostly probably followed them along, and because it was such a rapid, like it's only been the last few years that they really took off. So it's been nice to be able to follow someone along that journey. Yeah, I
love seeing that. I love seeing people in the bootstrapping and indie space get ahead like that. It's such a good, result for them. So I hope it keeps going for them. I think it will. Good on them. What else have I got? I've got Bootstrapped Web, and that's Brian Casel and Jordan Gall. They've had some interesting stories over the years. You can see the evolution of their products, and Jordan's had a few good wins. So nice to see.
Yeah, but FYI, these are all the same for me. So
really?
Just using your list. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, that's literally the 4 that I'm currently listening. Oh, and it's on here. Oh, hang on, no, keep going.
That's funny
because I don't think you have one of the ones I do have.
There you go. Well, I'll keep going. There's a few more to get through. I've got What's Your Problem by Jacob Goldstein, and I'll mention that one a bit later because it's probably Slow and Steady, and that's by Benedict Ray and Benedict Dyker. They do a really good job. They're just, building software products and telling their stories as they go. And they do some pretty fun stuff behind the scenes as well, which they share. So that's pretty cool. Rogue Startups is another one. That's an OG one as well. That's Dave Rodenbaugh and Craig Hewitt. And a
question with that one, because I only just started to listen to that one.
Yeah.
But I did used to listen to Craig's. I'm pretty sure it was Craig's. Is it Nights and Weekends?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
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 Did that predate that one, or was he doing that one at the same time? Or because that seems pretty Rogue Startup's been around a while.
Yeah, it's been around a while. It's one of the OGs for sure. Yeah. They probably had that before, half of these new podcast hosting platforms existed and they were doing it themselves behind the scenes. And I think, if I get it correct, I think Craig, he runs his own podcasting hosting company now, Castos.
Yes, he was running that back then, or starting it back when he had Nights and Weekends podcast. But
that's it.
Yeah.
It makes sense because, when he learned how to figure out how to record and publish podcasts and get them out there on the web, of course it makes sense you'd start a company in that space. No one else was doing it at the time. Yeah. 2 others, Bootstrapped Founder by Arvid Kahl. Everyone probably knows who Arvid is, and if you don't, get on Twitter, and he'll probably follow you pretty quickly. He's an awesome he content producer. He's got a successful story. He had a product called Startup Panda, which he sold. And from that, he has been just sharing with everyone the lessons and all the success stories that he got from that, and all the skills that he got. He's really generous there. He passes them on to everyone as he goes. So that's from Arvid. And a new one, which I haven't really listened to much yet. I literally just turned up on my podcast platform about a week ago, and that's Code and Conquer. And that's a new show from my Twitty friend, Tobias Arveiler. So I'm interested in checking that one out for sure. So that's my startups and entrepreneurship list.
I think the only one that I would miss and you have, I swear you do have it, but you don't have it there, is Startups to Last.
Uh-huh.
Or Startup to Last, or Startup, whatever the word is. Yeah, because that's the only other one I would add to that. I'm pretty sure. I'm just looking through my list here. Which is, Tyler and Rick run that one. Yeah, so that one's a good one too. The thing I like about that one is I like Tyler's got a unique way of doing things, and he would admit it, I would imagine. He doesn't do it the normal way. He doesn't grow his company the normal way. And it's always, and I will admit, he probably doesn't do it how I would do it either, but he's also got a good company. So it's really cool, I think, to expose yourself to just different opinions on it, even though I wouldn't say they're different opinions, like we're in the same space, but it's I find it refreshing to hear stuff. I'm like, I wouldn't do it that way, and I like to hear why, like why he does it the way he does. So it's been really good.
Yeah, I used to listen to that as well. That Tyler runs a company called Less Annoying CRM, and then he talks a little bit about his learnings from that, right?
Yes, yeah. And he's actually sort of taken a 6-week hiatus off that, and he's actually helping Rick build a new product. So, because Rick's got a sort of, I don't know what you call a productized or no-code solution.
Yeah, he's in the insurance space.
Insurance,
and it's specifically sort of state-based insurance. And I think he called it Leg Up Ventures, and I think he wanted to build a productized service around that insurance. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so they're building some SaaS product around that. So that's pretty cool. So he's getting Tyler to sort of bootstrap that, I guess. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to have another example of something sort of, I guess, rapidly getting built over the next couple of weeks or months, just see how it goes. Yeah. But apart from that, I mean, I've got a couple of the other ones like non-tech founders and stuff that Nathan runs as well that you put me on. That's pretty much my list, man. And I pretty much, to be honest, probably only listen to probably 3 or 4 of them, every week, and the rest maybe I'll, when I sort of go, I need to listen to something, I might jump in and find an old one or something. But yeah.
Well, you're right. Like I cherry pick. I mean, I've got a lot more on my list, and I'll rip through some of them pretty quickly here, but I do cherry pick. I'll sort of go, right, what do I want today? And I'll just go through and go, that one. In the tech space, because I'm building my SaaS at the moment, I've got a couple on there just, focusing on the subject areas that I'm working in. So I've got one is JS Party, or JavaScript Party, JS Party they call themselves. So that's pretty cool. There's 4, maybe 5 co-hosts to the show, and it's pretty well produced actually. It's solid. And then occasionally they'll get some big name people coming in, and they'll talk about, particular topics in JavaScript land. And the other one that I'm listening to is the React Show. And that's pretty cool. That's down into the detail, nerdy type stuff, and I get a bit out of it. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, and I did the same thing with like the Ruby, I can't remember what they're called, but was it Ruby, Hardcore Ruby or something like that? If I can remember what it was, one of those type of ones. They're really good, especially when you're learning something. And then eventually sometimes you sort of feel like, if it changes too much and you're not doing that particular piece of tech anymore, you do tend to sort of move off it. Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's why I listen to them. Just to give myself a bit of a balance as well, I flip over into the land of economics and finance. That just gives me a bit of a broad spectrum view of what's going on in the world. And the 2 I listening to there is Freakonomics Radio, and the other one is Planet Money. Planet Money is pretty cool. It's just literally 15-minute snippets here and there, and they talk about so many random different subjects. Just broadens your horizon a bit.
Yeah, I'd put in that for me would be I listen to, do you know Scott Galloway, Prof G?
Yeah, I heard Scott,
Yes. So he's Prof G Pod with Scott Galloway, because I like that one. He's one because he's got technically it's probably, you'd argue, I guess 3 different podcasts inside it. Like there's a weekly, economic market wrap up one, and there's something else. So it's I don't know. I find value in that one. He's pretty cool. I know he probably has, he's a bit opinionated, but I mean, he's a pretty good character to listen to.
Yeah, cool. And speaking of broadening the horizons, this one is goldmine for it. It's Hidden Brain, and that's by Shankar Vedantam. And he talks about subject areas, especially to do with the science of the mind. And it's just great. Some of the stuff he gets in there, it's just real inspirational stuff at the same time. Some of this, he breaks them into series every now and again. One of the series he did is called You 2.0, and it just talks about, different tricks or different patterns your brain plays with you, and you don't even realize it's happening. But if you start becoming aware of this type of stuff, you can sort of go, oh, okay, cool. I know how to deal with that, or I know how to sort of evolve around that. Especially one of them that came to mind recently was around the concept of inherent bias. We all have inherent bias in us, and that's probably just due to our upbringing or where we were brought up. And if we can become aware of that inherent bias, it can help us get rid of it and make it not cause such of a problem for others around us as well. So, yeah.
Oh, that's a whole episode in itself.
Yeah.
Hey? I mean, I'm right into some of that stuff. And really your paradigms and your things, realistically, the only reason you ever have any emotion, anything, is because of those hidden things that, until you know how to resurface them out, then you can shift them. And if you know how to do that, you can pretty much overcome anything, which is really mastering your brain. So it's, and how long are those episodes?
It goes for about, sometimes up to an hour, but you could really get into it. And here's why. Shankar Vedantam, the host, he's got such a lovely voice. Seriously, he talks and you just sit there and you just go, oh my God, keep talking, man. Like, your voice is just lovely.
I love it. Yeah. No, I'll have to check. That's a good one, man. I'm going to write that one down and have a look at that because it's very interesting stuff.
My wife and I like that one. Like occasionally if we were going to drive together, she wouldn't mind flipping that one on and we'll share that one together. So, yeah. There's not many there that we do share, but, whatever.
Same.
Take it when we can get it. And the last column that I'm looking at the moment on my playlist is just new music. I love music. I love listening to music. So I listen to All Songs Considered. Another show I've got is KEXP Music That Matters. I think they're based up in Seattle, Washington, and you get fairly indie type music popping out of that. And the other one is Edit Radio, and they are based in the UK, and then they'll always be talking about whatever new songs have come up that week, and they've got a rotating bunch of hosts. So that's on my list, Cole. Yeah.
That is a lot there, yeah. Like way more than me. As I said, I probably I probably have about 10, startup ones on there, probably listen to 4 of them.
Yeah.
And then Prof G. And then I guess in your infotainment tech sort of category, like that Land of the Giants, that sort of type of documentary of the tech, that one's a good, I don't know if you've seen them, but they're very ones that, you might, there might be 5 really long episodes. You listen to them and you're not, that's it. They're not every week. And I guess you probably did this as well. Did you used to listen to Hardcore History?
Once or twice,
yeah, but they're like mammoth, and that's also what I found with is it what's his name, Huberman podcast? Is it what's his name? Huberman Lab. I don't know if you know that guy.
No.
Oh, okay, yeah. So he's one of the he's a neuroscientist, does a lot of the mind and body stuff, but his episodes use like 3 hours, so you really need to be prepped for them,
Yeah,
and
you've got to commit to that.
They're great, but I listened to a few of them and then I was like, once the new year kicks in, it's a little bit too hard. So the only other things that, these are boring for people, but and it's sort of what you said about your tech ones is because I'm in customer success now, there is a good couple that I'm following called CS School and another one called Gain, Grow, Retain.
Yep.
So I guess if anyone is out there and they've got a slightly, bigger company, they've got some CS stuff, customer success stuff, or they're looking at, what should I know about in the customer success, retaining revenue, net revenue retention, all this sort of stuff. There's some pretty good podcasts now popping out, whereas I think a couple of years ago it just was non-existent. So it's good to see some of that coming out, which is cool.
Good suggestion.
Yeah, and I do, obviously I wouldn't probably listen to them if I wasn't running this startup, but it's good to just keep your fingers on the pulse of what the market's talking about. So that's been really good. Outside of that, man, it's all hobbies for me. I do wargaming and I follow the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's all just
nice.
Football podcasts.
Nice.
So no one else would be, unless you're into that, you're probably not going to listen to them. But
hey, if you were to pick out of all those ones that we've listed, right? If you were to pick your favorite, what would it be?
I'd say Yeah, so now you can't make me pick one. Because I would say startups. Like I think startups for the rest of us, it's by far probably the longer one and the best one.
Yeah.
However, I would say I probably don't go to that one as much as I do things like Startups to Last or even Bootstrap Web at the moment. And I think it's just because it's probably Startups for the rest of us is not the journey anymore as much. And so I think that's what I like. So I like listening to the ones that they're actually journeying, but they're actually doing something as well. So there is other ones out there where they're more like ours, where they're really new and they're cool to listen to, but they're not, they're not rapidly accelerating yet. Hopefully they will. So that's why I like Bootstrap's Web and Startups to Last. It's a bit more, it's a bit of meat in it when I listen to it. Yeah. What about you?
Well, if I was to look at them, I would say my favorite would have to be What's Your Problem? And that was the one that I mentioned earlier. That was hosted by former Planet Money host Jacob Goldstein. What he does, it's really well produced. So he helps listeners understand the problems that really smart people are trying to solve in the world with technology right now. And he's got a bit of backing behind it. I think the company that is running it is called Pushkin, and obviously you can tell it's well produced. But he gets some amazing people on, and he just has a chat with them for a while and says, what the hell are you doing here? Like, what boundary are you pushing, and what is it that the problem is you're trying to solve? And if you solve it, how will you help humanity? I think the last one that I listened to was such a cool story. Is this company that is, I forget the name of it, but they were creating drone deliveries for healthcare products for hospitals, right? And the environment in the United States is where this company was from, was too over-regulated, and they weren't able to actually get out there and be a bootstrapping startup and get their work out there. So they moved to Kenya, I think it was, somewhere in Africa.
Yeah.
And the folks in this area in Kenya, they embraced it. They just went, you want to help us get our hospitals, all the facilities and all the equipment that they need faster than what we currently we have? Yeah, sure. Let's try it. Let's go for it. And the cool story that they figured out was, in this one location, there's an excellent distribution hub in this city area, this urban area. But out there in the regions, it can take sometimes 2 or 3 hours to drive and deliver really important products like blood or plasma or some sort of drug that needs to be produced on the spot just to help with the surgery that's happening. And so they figured out a way to get these drone deliveries happening so it takes,
it's straight across
10, 15 minutes to deliver with something which would previously take 2 or 3 hours. And it's amazing. So they've got this whole facility. And then from that, they were able to, get scrappy and just keep evolving and make these drones better and better and better and make them more accurate and also more resilient to failure. So if something goes wrong, they've got all these, fail-safe systems involved. Anyway, that was told on the story. So then Jacob turns around and he says, so what's the problem? And he says, well, I can't run this in America. And the reason why is because in the United States, they don't have these things called transponders on every single airplane, right? And what a transponder is it helps other airplanes see each other in the sky so they don't crash into each other. And for some weird reason, America, one of the leading nations.
Yeah, you would think they'd have to turn it on, but it is an older tech, isn't it? But
they've got scenarios where you don't have to have transponders if you don't want to in some circumstances. So you got this idea of these drones, these unmanned aircraft flying around delivering healthcare products, but could potentially crash into each other or other planes. So that's his problem. He had to figure out how to deal with that. So it was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, no, that's it. Look, there's always going to be new ones in there. There's always stuff to listen to. So that's really cool. Even like I said, I learned something on this episode because you listen to more than I do. So it's been really good to know that. So yeah. Anyway, I think we're getting on there. Did you want to mention any of the other ones, or did you want to go straight into shout outs, Dan? Because you had a few listed here that.
Look, I just give a really quick mention to some of the ones from the past in order of name and author. Straight away, I'll go fast. Bootstrapped by Steve McLeod. Bootstrapping SaaS by Val Soapy. Actually, I've got to give Val credit. He's doing an amazing job. He's an indie hacker. If you haven't heard of Val Soapy, check him out. But he hasn't done many of his Bootstrapping SaaS episodes recently. So, Val, what are you doing, mate? Get out there. Britstrapped by Nick Swan.
I love that name. That's a cool name.
That's a good one. Britstrapped by Nick Swan and Martin Judd, 2 guys from the UK, hence the name Brit. Getting to Ramen by Joshua Anderton. He doesn't run that one anymore, but it was a nice one to listen to and he did it. There's obviously the one that everyone asks about, Indie Hackers, but that's by Cortland and Channing Allen. That's an OG one there. Then there's Software Social by Colin Schnettler and Michelle Hansen. I loved that when they were doing it. They've gone on hiatus for a while because they've got a lot of stuff going on in their life. But it was so cool actually hearing some female founders talking about the stuff in the software space. So I love that one. Thank you. And then there was Product Journey by Noah Bragg and Ben Mann. They Ben moved on to a few other things, and Noah, I think he's still doing it. And another shout out to Out of Beta by Matt Wensing and Peter Soom. And again, that was a good one. They've put that one on hold for a bit, but that's the honourable mention.
It sounds like they're going to be back a little bit, but they're just having to. Was that right from what they were saying, that there's just some stuff they can't share at the moment, or they were just going to do a bit more ad hoc?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that one? Yeah. Cool. That's a really good one. Yeah, no, awesome. That is there's a lot there. We might have to put these in the show notes. If people
good
idea.
Check out the show notes. We should have a list in there for you. And
awesome.
But speaking of shout outs, I do have one shout out, or actually a few. I did put the call out this week on Twitter to see what podcasts others would recommend in the tech related or tech business related areas. And the following folks replied. So thank you to Anurag, and he suggested My First Million as a cool show to check out. So thanks, Anurag, for that one. We also have Stephen Bateman, and he's got a cool handle. His handle is I Am Bateman, and he suggested Hackers Incorporated. So thanks, Stephen, for that one. Romain DeWolf, I think you and I both friends with Romain. So Romain, he suggested Lenny's podcast, and that was by Lenny Rachitsky. So,
and if that's the Lenny, I haven't listened to this one, but is that Lenny? Like Lenny, there's a newsletter and there's a Lenny.
Yep, that's Lenny.
YouTube, is that Lenny? Yeah, okay. Cool.
Yeah. So thank you for that suggestion, Romain. That was awesome.
Cool.
And last but not least is Scott Sawinski. And Scott, he suggested not a podcast, but it's a YouTube show called Cold Fusion. And actually I checked it out and it looked pretty interesting. So there you go. That's the bonus on the side there. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for reaching out. Yeah, that's we always love when you guys get back to us when we do ask. I know generally we ask like a couple of days before the podcast, so we don't really give you a lot of time, but thanks for the guys who have let us know what they listen to. Awesome. Well, that's it for another Sunday, Dan. I think anything you want to cover before we go?
No, that's probably it for the show this week, Cole. I appreciate it, yeah.
No, thank you. Thanks for spending another Sunday with us, everyone. I guess that's the show. Like we said, we always, if there's after this, if there's any other podcasts you think of, always send it through. You can always reach us at Twitter on pushtoprodpod, or you can email the show at pushtoprodpod@gmail.com. And remember, we do have the Transistor site up now on pushtopprod.show. So, yeah, hit us up on there. But obviously, you can always find us on Twitter at Gummo and at Mr. Dan Miller.
Cool.
Outside of that,
mate, one last thing I've got to add, though, I added it last week and I'm going to keep adding it. Folks, if you're listening to this point, this far, if you could also please do us a favor, give us a rating. So if you can give us a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, ratings, they help other people find out about the show. And because we're new, that's what we want to do. We want to let people know we're here. So yeah, give us a rating if you can, please.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to help us move up there. And we're going to keep hitting you up on Twitter as well, because we've got a few, you've probably seen some of the questions we're throwing out there about like old tech stories and things like that. We've got a few episodes that we're trying to line up. So keep watching your Twitter feeds for our questions and feed it back, and we'll see you on our next episodes. Thanks for listening, and until next time, Dan.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks, Cole. It's awesome to chat with you again, and we'll talk again next week. Thanks, mate.
Cheers. Bye.